I remember when my father-in-law was first diagnosed, my brother-in-law said that he was gone. Dad's gone. And I just kind of like, what do you mean he's gone? He's still here. The different family members didn't understand. He couldn't drive anymore because of the late night driving. Taking him to the bank, he couldn't remember his PIN number, or taking him shopping, he couldn't remember how to use the keypad. The simplest tasks like bathing or showering or doing laundry, those tasks became very difficult for him.
I think it was about 3 years ago that we started getting phone calls from community members saying that their family member couldn't remember, or that we'd be staying up all night, and they're really stressed about it. At that time, that we as nurses realized that we didn't know much about dementia ourselves.
One night he wandered outside and he was sleeping on the lawn, and we were sleeping downstairs and we didn't hear him leave. And when we found out where he was that early in the morning, because we heard some noise, he was had made his bed on the lawn, and that really scared us.
In our First Nations culture, because dementia was never mentioned like 50 years ago, this is all something new. It's here now. Back then, when our elders were getting old, people would say, oh, they're just tired. They just want to rest now. You know, they've had their days. They never thought about dementia.
You know, I understand now it's an illness.
Dementia is a collection of neurological symptoms. So within the brain can change over time as a result of many different things that might be happening to it. And the symptoms that come out of those changes are what are called types of dementia. Alzheimer's is one of the best known or well-known types of dementia. It is often the one that we refer to, or doctors refer to, the most. We know that in British Columbia there are approximately 70,000 British Columbians who have a diagnosis of dementia. The incident rate of dementia in the Indigenous First Nation population is 34% higher than the general population in BC, which is about 5 to 7%.
The biggest thing is knowing what dementia is, understanding that they're cognitively there's things that are going to be changing for them, and to have understanding patience.
When people start getting forgetful, they don't really tell, and so it goes quite a ways, and then others start to notice. When family notices that somebody has dementia in their family, they often don't really reveal that. They kind of gather around and maybe protect that person. They just manage as best they can. People need to be helped to talk about it, to talk about what their needs are, because everybody's experience with it is different.
Yeah, there was signs, small subtle signs that I didn't recognize in the beginning. He said he didn't want to drive at night anymore, so he drove through the day. He wasn't paying some of his bills, where he was usually right on with paying his bills and doing tasks like that. I noticed that he started losing interest in a lot of things, all these activities, and then one day he just stopped, and we knew that something was going on with him.
It happened to us twice, my mother and then her mother. With me, I noticed it right away. Like we'd bring our grandchildren, and yet she knew them. She'd say, "Who is this?" Her little habits, she'd forget to do things. Other things started to change, like when we took her shopping with us, she thought she was shopping for the 8 kids that used to live in her house. And then going outside of the house unsupervised, she needed supervision. and doing strange things like that, going outside for walks without a coat. And then the hardest part is when she started, well, she forgot my name, forgot who I was. That really hurt.
For me, it was just feeling at loss for the person that it happens to. Just watching the person not be the same person they were. And yet she was a really independent woman.
Probably one of the main challenges is not getting a break, because we had to do this 24/7. We didn't have someone that could come in and give us a break.
Just doing things, just taking care of my mom when I didn't know how. You know, I had to learn another language. I had to learn her facial expressions.
We had to kind of educate ourselves and prepare ourselves and community members, because a lot of community members saw him wandering but didn't understand what was happening. So we had to share within community that if you saw him wandering and if he was going too far, to ask him if he was okay or to pick him up and to bring him home.
The community needs to know who the people are. It's really important that we remember that it takes the whole community to look after a person with dementia and to make sure that they're safe in the community.
Because I wasn't trained to deal with my mom with her dementia, I didn't realize that, because I would raise my voice and get upset with her, then he would say, "Marlene, don't talk to her like that. Sit down, calm down, talk to her quietly, communicate with her."
My niece, who had training, told me what to watch for, told me how to talk.
When you have dementia, some caregivers don't understand and they talk to that person like they're a child. But after I started learning about him having dementia, I would kneel right to his level and talk to him very clearly and no distractions, and that was really what helped us. I guess treating them with human dignity, love and respect is important, and part of the healing for them is feeling loved and cared for. I think the biggest thing is knowing that we have a culture, and respect is one of the highest things we can do for that person, is showing them love and respect, and to have understanding, patience, giving them that sense of being in control of their own lives rather than us making decisions, is keeping them involved in those decisions and understanding where they're coming from and not trying to push anything or pressure them, or to have respect and to have love and support so that we could heal as a family. The other thing is the language, because when you're in the healthcare system, you don't have the Gitxsan language. You actually need a translator.
When my mother was in the hospital, a young man, he came up to me and he said, "Your mother's asking for mush. What is mush?" And I looked, "Oh," I said, "she's asking for porridge. That's what our people called it way back in the day. I want to have some mush." And he goes, "Oh," I was wondering what she was talking about.
One elderly lady that spoke Gitxsan fluently told me in Gitxsan, "It's very hard to be Malu," she said. "I'm going Malu." So what I would do is I would just hug her and ask her, "How are you feeling?" And because a lot of the people that have dementia, they can be so clear and they know that something's going on in their brain. They know that things aren't right. And when they come through, she was able to express that to me, and I would just hug her and thank her for sharing. it's kind of like a wave. When a wave comes, you know, you have your lows and then you have your highs when they're doing well, and then you have your lows again.
And then you cling to the moments where she has clarity, and she knows you and she knows everybody, especially at community events like feasts. I think people with dementia should be always surrounded with what's familiar, especially people.
Another lady that was asking me if I could drum and sing for her. She used to do it many years ago, and she's got dementia now. And so I started singing one day as I was caring for her, and she stopped and she said, "Oh, do you know those songs?" And I said, "Yes." And then I started talking to her, like making small gestures in Gitxsan, like "Amalawina, how are you doing?" Or, you know, those small gestures of talking Gitxsan, those small gestures of sharing our culture, our singing, our songs, our dancing, all the different things, and talking about what it was like for them when they were healthy, bringing back memories for them, I think really allowed me to share my heart, my culture with them to help heal them. And I think that's the spiritual part of having that energy and transition of changing them and making them feel like, you know, this is who I am and that's their identity.
One of the things that's so important about supporting someone with Alzheimer's is having what we call a person-centered approach, is ensuring that that individual is seen first as a person with strong connections to their culture, to their language, to their beliefs. And then once that is understood, is to ensure that then the support that is for the dementia is tailored around that, so that person continues to be as active as possible in their community, but the supports that are necessary to support their dementia is also present.
When we started doing education training on dementia, that to me really opened my eyes in a lot of the signs and symptoms that my father-in-law was experiencing. It wasn't until I started really learning about dementia when I started getting emotional, when the tears were able to come and I was able to finally put my mark.
Before we just let the family look after them, because we didn't understand much ourselves. But now that we know, we can go into the homes and teach the whole family how to care for them. It entailed going into the communities and talking to family members and seeing how they're coping with a person with dementia. And we wanted to hear from them on what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And we wanted to know what resources would help them to keep the family member in the home as long as possible.
When people begin to talk, then you can recognize where you can begin to develop programs or insert services.
We worked with Alzheimer's Society and First Nations Health, and we brought in talking circles, because that's part of our culture, going in a talking circle, and we feel more comfortable. We develop trust at the same time.
We had 2 talking circles. One was the initial information gathering, and then the second talking circle was to bring the conclusions back to the community. And the people were very, very excited. They had lots to say about it, and they said, we need to do this a lot more. The Alzheimer's Society is interested in doing a lot more outreach. They have a hotline that you can call if you have questions, or you can just phone them and they'll find you answers. There's a lot of potential to have a lot of support around people dealing with dementia. There's no cure, but there are things you can do to make it better for the person that has dementia and for the caregivers.
I know that the dementia is only going to get worse, but at the same time, I'm going to embrace everything that I have and what he has to offer to each other and to support one another.
I think when you realize that your family member has memory loss, you should go to the health station, get support and education, because we're here for you and we'll be out there to help them.
you.